Hello and welcome back to Level Zero Literacy. My name is Mason, and I'm so proud to bring you our episode on indie hit Off. Now, during the episode, we're going to spoil the events of the game from beginning to end, and we're going to discuss topics that include, but are not limited to, body horror, nihilism, and trauma for children. Please use your best judgment before proceeding, and enjoy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Level Zero Literacy. Today, we are going to be talking about Off, a game theoretically from 2008, but I'm pretty sure the English translation came out in 2011 from Mortist Ghost and Friends. I am joined, as always, by my favorite weird spirit apparitions that I made up because I died as a child, Sam.
I guess it's better this way.
And Mason.
Plastic is the first of the four elements.
Is it the most important one?
What? No, that would be the secret fifth element.
Yes, sugar.
Drugs. What?
Okay, so I'm going to be honest. This game is short. This game is weird and fucked up in its messaging. I think it kind of meanders a little bit and doesn't.
This game was clearly made by French people.
Yeah, for sure.
It is
For sure.
It is far and away the most surrealist game that we have played for the podcast thus far, and I don't even think it is particularly close.
I downloaded it onto my computer, and then I had a pack of cigarettes in my pocket, and I don't even know where that came from.
Yeah.
This game had something scarier than anything I've ever seen in any of the horror. I don't mean seen. This game had a thing that made me react in horror harder than any other game we've played for this podcast.
Yeah.
I believe it. They put a lot of work into these creature designs and stuff.
I learned what the inspirations for this game were earlier today, and that they were not at all what I was expecting, because I'm going to say something that I don't think either of you are going to believe. This game, not inspired by Earthbound.
No, I believe that.
Not only was it not inspired by Earthbound, the creator of this game had not played or heard of Earthbound when he made this game.
That is
Hearing
surprising.
about Earthbound as someone who made not hearing about Earthbound,
maybe he was
an
aware of
RPG
it, but
Maker game.
I thought that was illegal.
So maybe aware of it, but not at all acclimated to.
I thought you had to name all the characters on Earthbound to download RPG Maker. It was like a test.
Yeah.
The actual game inspirations for this game, and some of these are kind of funny. Killer 7.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Myst.
Okay, yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
all
Yeah,
right.
I mean, there's so much note taking in this fucking game. I
Yeah.
had to take so many pictures with my phone.
And this is funny. Silent Hill.
Really?
I'm not,
Okay, that makes
no,
a
I'm
lot
not
of
surprised.
sense.
I'm not surprised by that at all.
Which I think makes extra sense if you got the secret ending for this game.
When
which
you
is
say it,
the
it clicks.
space monkey one.
where the space monkeys show up and are like, this is where we will build our new robot factory so that we can protect our world from. And it's like, okay, no, well,
And the factory they build, Monk Hollywood.
yeah, well,
It all
God.
ties back in. Same eastward cinematic universe.
Yeah, so I thought it was I guess it's not. Maybe it's not surprising that this game's not inspired by Earthbound, but the fact that there wasn't even a chance that this game was inspired by Earth, or there was thoughts in the creators.
That is interesting. I don't find it completely unbelievable, but it is very interesting that the person that made this game had never played Earthbound.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that for this game, the translation that came out in 2011 was eventually replaced, and my understanding of it is that the newer translation is not only more correct, but also vastly changes the intention and meaning of the game, because there's a lot of dialogue that happens in the room that is very meaningfully different and does impact. So if
meaningfully different from the first translation or from the French?
From the first translation.
Okay.
First translation.
So if you had originally played this game in 2011 when the first translation came out and have not revisited it since then, some of the things we might talk about today might differ from your understanding of things. So just keep that in mind as we sort of discuss things.
Mm-hmm. So you'll notice I did not say what the themes of the game were at the beginning of the episode, and that was on purpose because, first off, what I thought about the game and what it was trying to say changed significantly from I thought the game was trying to say something very specific all the way through Area 3, Zone 3. And then that thing completely changed.
Yeah.
Did you think it was like a heavily like environmentalist type of thing?
Not so kind of environmentalist, but kind of criticizing. So the first, freaking 75% of this game to me felt a little bit like a criticism of how people exist in society.
Sure.
Yeah.
It felt like, people believe, it's talking about people's beliefs based on where they come from and what they're told by authority figures, how people react or resist change, or how people maybe get too comfortable in the lives they're living. And then it turns out that this world was all made up by a dying boy.
Yeah.
Who didn't have an understanding of the world. And so it was his fabricated view of reality that you were traveling through.
Sure.
I
don't think that makes what the game is levying as far as its critique of society any less impactful, just because that is the scope, that is the perspective of which the events are being unfolded. Even if the concept is that, this is all the creation of one kid who is basically just projecting his understanding of how things work into the world, that in and of itself is a levied criticism of the way the world is, right?
You're saying it might just be the chosen lens through which they deliver that same critique?
If anything, I think it actually makes it more scathing, because the fact that a child would think a world this grim at a very young age,
right,
says a lot about how, corrupted things can seem if things are made aware so soon to somebody.
And I think I maybe misspoke. I don't think the last act, I'll say, the last act of the game plays out negates it. I just thought the last act felt weird and misplaced and very different. It was portraying a very different thing than the rest of the game. I don't know.
Was this game maker's freshman outing into game design?
It was. So the people that made this game weren't really game designers when they made Off.
Mm-hmm.
They were artists. So there's
only
this game was made by two people, and one of them basically made the whole game and did all the art, and the other one did all the music and sound design. So
oh man, the sound design in this game is
it's very good,
incredible.
It's very good.
Yeah.
So
and they've since this game has come out, both of those people have worked on a lot of other projects. They have games that they've made for game jams.
Mm-hmm.
They have done mod and texture packs for other games. So I think this was their first game that they made, but they were creating art before Off. And I think that comes through a lot because, the gameplay of Off is fine.
I mean, it's very generic RPG, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's nothing special. I don't think it really has there's not really a lot of depth or weight. So, but when it comes to like the art, the narrative, the music, all these all these other elements that really tie
all of the
things
more
together.
I'm going to say something controversial. All of the more important things about a game when evaluating it as a piece of art than the gameplay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can see that. It just seems like the third act turn. I don't even want to call it a twist because I don't think it was.
It's not really a twist.
It's a surprise.
It's just
a surprise.
It just feels like something that would be more at home in like a book or like something that had more time to let it breathe and connect the dots to the earlier points. Not to say that I don't like it.
Yeah.
I agree with you that it feels very surprising, feels very out of left field. I do like what they do with it. I like the exploration of like the mother-father dynamics from the lens of the child, finding the view of the world as someone who is leaving it, right?
Without ever really experiencing it.
Yeah, they do a lot of interesting things there that add some really interesting insights to the earlier parts of the game, like the sugar factory and like there's like, you could like imagine children like coming up with like pretty crazy demented lenses through which to view the world when not given any sort of guiding force, not given any sort of worldview from the people that they trust in the world. It's very interesting.
So I think the ending the third act is actually very important. I don't think it actually changes. I think the biggest thing for me as far as connecting the dots between the third act and the rest of the game is the chapter where you actually go and visit all of the guardians of the three zones, the tall man,
but I have
big
three
man.
I had three friends chapter.
Yeah.
And because that is the only time you really get to see the world as it was, like before the creation of this world by this child. And that world in and of itself is also like really messed up. Basically, like at the end of whatever its creation was, and it's not, if not for Mother bringing back the building blocks for a new world to be created, would have basically ended in tragedy, right? And the other thing is that in Act 3, the chapters count backwards. So the progression of time is not linear either, because you jump around from February, you go backwards in February, and then you go to March and all this other stuff. But I think I think the intent of counting down the chapters just shows that you're working your way back to the start where this all started from, as you've been breaking down all the elements of this world.
Kind of I don't want to say inciting event. I don't know. I guess I'd like to ask a question here. So how do we want to do this? Because there's a couple things that I want to talk about. One of the things I want to talk about is what do we think the battery is actually doing?
Okay.
The second thing that I'm interested in talking about is if we can determine, and I've read some things about if we can determine what actually happened between the batter, the mother, and the child.
Sure.
And then the third thing is what do we think the game overall is actually trying to say?
Okay.
The purification thing. It feels. So first, I was talking to Mason a little bit about this before we started. To me, I don't know if you're ever supposed to feel comfortable with what the batter is doing. Because the batter is the only person who talks about his actions in a positive or justified light.
Right.
And it's very it's very evangelical. Like, he's very...
So let's elaborate on this a bit. So I think this is important because you have to remember that you as the player, one, you are a character in this game, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
You as with most metatextual RPG makers from this time.
Yeah.
You the player are an actual character in this game. You are viewing everything in this place through the eyes and the lens of the batter. Now that's important because when you look at everything, the batter has a very religious view of the world, right?
Right.
Almost everything in this game that the batter ends up interacting with or collecting or whatever has some sort of religious symbolism attached to it. From the add-ons,
His weapons are named after angels.
Weapons are named after angels.
He has like clothing that's named after characters from the Bible.
Yep. So like
I don't know if y'all caught this, but the add-ons,
have names.
their
Alpha,
classes.
Omega.
No, their classes are Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not see that.
Yep.
So the father has a very religious view of the world. You know, I think genuinely you could even go so far to say is that the father or the batter is like a fundamentalist Christian.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's plenty of clues in the game to point you in that direction. Both the way he speaks and all the things we just talked about.
Also, and I specifically made sure to show this to Mason earlier today, when you switch perspectives, and this is the only time you get to switch perspectives in the entire game, when you switch perspectives and play as the judge, literally for that one boss fight for the other ending at the end of the game, the batter looks like a monster.
Right.
The batter looks like a spirit.
And
that's only because you are seeing it through through someone else's perspective.
I think you were meant to read that as seeing the world through the judge's perspective,
right?
In the same way that the batter has dissented ideas of what things are and look like, because you get like a literal photograph, or you can't. I don't know if y'all did. You can get a photograph of the batter, and he just looks like how his picture looks,
right?
Mm-hmm. And you know, I also like there's clues about this, like so in Zone 1. Dedan, when you go to confront Dedan, he's like, why the hell are you bringing these ghosts in here?
Yeah.
You know? And I'm like,
It's like, I don't know. I sort of reacted to that as sort of an understanding that, because like you get this feeling throughout the game that the batter's not actually there to deal with the ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
The batter only cares about the ghosts when the puppeteer cares about the ghosts. Otherwise, the batter is like solely there for the guardians. And the batter's like pretty clear about that, right? You get to the later parts of the game, like when you go to fight the bird and the fat man, and he's like, "All right, I'm here to kill and purify you," right? He doesn't mince words. He doesn't seem to be confused about it. Mm-hmm. He's there to fight the guardians.
And I mean, there are a couple places where he specifically fights other spirits that are not the guardians.
Yeah,
like in the cow barn, and then when the bird goes haywire on the people in Bismarck, and you have to kill all the ghosts there in X amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. He is primarily just like after the Guardians. He mainly just takes actions to go after the Guardians. He's not like the fact that like it's helping people out is not a thing that he cares about. What he cares about is purifying, not that
he has a sacred mission that he has to fulfill, regardless of the things that he has to do to fulfill that mission.
People in the salt mine seem convinced that one of the add-ons, Alpha, is the one bringing the ghosts.
Yeah.
Batter just like collects them and then goes back to the salt mine people, and he's like, "Oh no, nope, take my word on it.
Yep.
This guy has nothing to do with it." So like, I feel like the batter. I'm going to talk about the entire game through this lens, and so I'm going to introduce this idea now. I hope y'all will. It might sound a little whack. I was explaining it a little bit to Buck, but hear me out, okay? I think the batter is like a sort of fascist right-wing ideology. And I think the game is about a struggle between like two parents, one father who's like this right-wing fundamentalist. He is, nihilist. He is jaded and sad because of his time he spends with a kid. And the mother is this like utopian spiritualist. Like, I think the main conflict of the game is the conflict between those two. The batter being a baseball batter is like a hearkening back to, and this is, I'm looking at this through a lens of American politics, so maybe I'm missing some symbology since it was written by French people. But like, you have in the protagonist's party, in the batter's milieu, you have these religious things, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and then good old American baseball, right? Which is like the hearkening back to the preferable before time, which is like a tenet of like fascism, right? And you're fighting back against the sick modern world that's been poisoned by plastics and sugars, and
Right.
everyone's fat or Catholic or and it's just like in my head, I'm like, throughout the entirety of the game, I was like, this feels like pretty right wing. Now, a charitable reading might be like a warning sign of like how hopelessness can turn into nihilistic fascist thinking. I don't think, at least from the portions of the game I saw, that it felt like that to me. It might have represented a personal struggle on the part of the authors. Everyone sort of goes through times in life where they're trying to form their ideology and worldview. But like, I definitely see the batter and the add-ons through that lens, through a like heavily right-wing traditionalist lens.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's wrong. I have some other readings on the text, but yeah, I think that's what the batter is. Wherever we might think he falls on the political spectrum, I think there are like the undeniable traits on him is that he is heavily religious, whether he's a religious fundamentalist or just like a very religious person in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also important to note that he does solve problems through brute force.
Yeah.
There is never like, this isn't a game where it's like, oh, maybe I can like fix things through implementing new guardians or working with people to like fix the problems in the world. It is nope, just have to.
Fundamental to the view of the batter is that the world is poisoned and wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think I don't think that could even be considered as like a possible solution from the batter's perspective.
Sure, but that's what I'm saying. That's why it's important to note this. It has to be solved through brute force, like deletion and getting rid of things.
And I don't know about you two, but like the batter being the father figure in the story makes a lot of sense, sort of with the place of the father in the normal family, right?
Mm-hmm.
When y'all think of your relationships to your fathers, certainly I think this way, they are motivated to action. They are concise. They frequently have to be a decision maker, which means they have to be able to make up their mind, and everything has to be, in a lot of times in life, things have to be seen in blacks and whites because like decisions have to be made. My father and my stepfather are not people who I don't mean to say that they are callous or unfeeling people. I just mean to say that their responsibility, their place in the family is such that it lends itself to this kind of worldview. I think that's true of a lot of people's fathers. I don't know. What do y'all think?
I don't think that's wrong.
Yeah.
I will mention here that it is important to note artistically that all of the character sprites in this game are in black and white, and the only color in the world are these like heavily saturated, monocolor color palettes.
And while we're talking about what the batter's doing here, the batter being inclined to action thing, I can't remember exactly where this was because I played most of this game yesterday. There was a point where like I was very upset with the things that were happening. Primarily the first time it happened was when you were fighting one of the what seems like a normal person, but like all that person is doing is help is coming out of their mouth.
Oh yeah, you're talking about when you're talking about in zone 3 when you're
Yeah.
on the tram.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, when he's just standing in the way of the tram,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
just get out, and he doesn't do anything to you. You just murder him.
Yep. Yeah.
I
That's like the first kind of, that's like not the first, but like one of the biggest clues that the batter is sort of a violent, hateful,
yeah.
or like dangerously utilitarian type of person.
I think it's important to note that there are like 2 distinct enemy types in this game, between the phantoms, which are just like ethereal specters of, whatever, however you want to like think of them. But the burnt are like basically a completely different category. They are just people that have been corrupted by the world that they are living in. Those people are not evil. They need help because the circumstances that they live in have caused them to it is manifested in the game as like a physical ailment of like your head exploding and like flying off, or like getting a really big head, or whatever. But the burnt's problem, like the burnt are not really evil. They are people that have been pushed down by a system that has like destroyed them effectively.
Have either of y'all played or seen art from Lisa the Painful?
I haven't
Not
played
yet.
it, but I'm familiar.
I feel like some of the monster design in Lisa the Painful is very inspired from the monster design in Off. It is very evocative of, the disfigured man, despite the people appearing in the overworld to be these like aloof, normal looking, pretty same looking guys. In combat, they are stretched, warped, distorted beyond sort of recognition as a human. And I see a lot of that. In these later indie RPG hits. I like the effect that they have in informing you a little bit about how the batter feels about the world. Right? It's very hard to sort of chew on these things that the game is giving you. It's like, yeah, the world is made of plastic, metal, smoke, and dirt. And like you don't really know what to do with that.
And meat.
And sugar. And then it's like it's very hard to figure out what to make of that until you see the denizens of the world in combat. And then you're able to sort of feel, you're like understand what they're trying to make of those things, of that world building. It's like the world is corrupt and it corrupts the people. It disfigures the people.
Yeah.
And the second thing that I wanted to say about in this area was, did y'all go back into the purified zones?
Oh yeah.
I did not. I briefly went back into 1 to do grinding. I went back to zone 1 to go look for something that I had missed, and I realized on the train tracks there were very easy enemies that gave thousands and thousands of XP.
Right.
I kind of lost track of what I was doing. I grinded a few levels and just split.
When you go back into a purified zone, all of the color is gone. And in Zone 1 specifically, because that's the only one I really had time to explore, I actually went through all of Zone 1 and grabbed like one of the hyper secret items that you need for the secret ending. When you're walking through that, the fucking music in the background is somebody knocking on the door and screaming.
Jesus.
It's...
And also all the enemies are replaced with, they're called secretaries.
Yeah.
And they're just like these like horrifically malformed entities.
Mine look like big clay babies.
Yeah, that's
what they are.
So each zone after you purify it has a different secretary, but they're all like the secretaries. There is one denizen who is left. I think he is I believe he's in zone 2, and he just like, oh, thank God, everything's so much better now. Nothing can ever hurt me because there is nothing.
I don't know why. After going back and finding those enemies, I didn't think to go explore further.
Yeah,
There's not really
I didn't use a guide, so it's nothing. It was like all just kind of intuitive.
There's nothing really defined in the purified zones other than the secretaries and then like some special items, which you don't really need. It's, because the game's not that hard, but it is. I think if you're going back, it's more to just like see the effects of the purification and just like understand the ramifications of what the batter is doing to this world.
Mm-hmm. Which is like, I understand. To give listeners a thing, Mason was saying that the game he thought didn't criticize the batter's actions enough if you're supposed to view the batter negatively. I thought going back into Zone 1 and walking through it and the soundtrack being that and the zone being in the state it was in was plenty evidence that you're not supposed to just take the batter as word, at least for me.
Sure, I can see that.
You think... So we should unpack that little that Buck just said. So do you want to elaborate on that, Mason?
Yeah. So part of what I explained a little bit to Buck off pod that if I want to read this charitably, if I want to believe that the creators of the game, the writers, are not these like crazy right wing people, and that they're actually interested in engaging with this, that I don't think they did a fantastic job of critiquing the batter's actions when you consider that the canon ending is that the batter goes all the way back in time and undoes everything before it even exists, and how you consider that the batter views the world and faces like no real meaningful, at least in my playthrough, no real meaningful obstacles, nothing that is not like an easy fight at its core. It makes me think that not that the writers are like sympathetic to like some kind of crazy right-wing ideology, just that like it's not very critical of the things the batter is doing. You do have some hints that the batter is like overly brutal. He does like kill a guy. He kills a lot of people, right? But it seems to me that the game portrays a lot of the antagonistic forces to the batter as like just as bad, or like terrible in their own way, which is sort of as a contrapositive, like a condoning of some of the batter's actions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't agree at all, honestly, but I can see where you're getting at. But I think that because game is a surrealist piece of work, you sort of have to engage with it more critically, and that is for better or for worse. I think it's possible you do run into the trappings of, well, the batter is the protagonist and he doesn't really face a lot of hardship or difficulty in his mission. But I don't think the game ever tries to justify the things that the batter does to you. It is simply the things that are happening in the game.
Yeah.
The game doesn't really pass judgment much on anybody. I feel like it is simply laying out a world and a story that is unfolding, and it is important for you, the player, as a character in this world, to prescribe the meaning to it, as it is so dense and requires a lot of unpacking to understand.
So my pushback, Mason, to your idea, beyond what I've already said, is I think Zachary pretty clearly calls you, the character of the person, like the player in the game, out for simply letting the batter do what he does.
Mm-hmm.
Judge does too.
The judge does too. Like, I think about the line the judge says at the end of the game, where it's like, you just killed a woman and child.
Yeah,
like,
he does address you, the player, like, why would you let this happen?
Yeah.
I think to say that the batter kills a woman and child is to ignore what is going on in the last chapter of the game. The batter's ultimate goal is to go back in time and make sure none of this happens. The last words of the child are, "I'm afraid of the darkness," and the batter says, "Don't worry, there will be no darkness anymore." Which is to say, like, he's stopping this from ever happening. The batter would rather have none of this ever transpired at all, because the batter sees the terrible things happening is abhorrent, I think that is a pretty much impenetrable argument. But like the mother and the child, just like everything else that the batter is so willing to brutalize, are simply obstacles in the way of turning off the world, right? Of making sure that none of this ever happened.
Now,
I agree with that. I agree with those
I
things.
agree with those things. I just don't know why I did not view that as the creators of the game condoning the batter's actions. I don't think you're supposed to view what the batter is doing as good and correct.
I think what you're supposed to see what the batter is doing is as at least a valid and sympathetic worldview, which is what I'm saying.
Why?
I don't
why-
think
why-
I don't
hold on.
think
I need to understand why you think that, because I'm not making those connections at all.
so. Like in my mind, the game, the main conflict is between the utopian, beautiful, creative worldview of the mother, right, and the brutal utilitarian worldview of the father.
Okay.
The mother and the father split up. The father takes the child, right? The father has to be with the child during all of the medical procedures, during all the hard days, during all the times that the child is sad and crying, right? And this shapes the father's worldview into a brutal, utilitarian view of the world as being disgusting and medical and corrupt and not like it was before when he was happy. And then the mother comes around on the birthdays and hangs out with the child when things are good and tries to make the child happy, right? And the mother's worldview is that the child should be as happy as possible before he dies, right? Do you agree with all those things?
No, I don't.
All right, what did I say?
But I think this is because I have a very different read on the text than you do.
What did I say that you didn't? Because like everything I'm going to build is going to be off of those premises.
I don't agree that the father is the caretaker of the child on his hard days. I don't think that is actually what's happening in the game at all. I don't think that is what is going on. So this is going to cross us into
The
the
second
last
point
thing where we're talking about
yeah.
what we think is going on in this game. To me, the world that we are seeing, and this is only one of my reads on the text. This is just one read about the story of the father, the child, and the mother. From that point of view, what I see this game as is the world that we are seeing is the body of the child. This is the inner workings of the kid, like in a metaphysical sense. The kid is being injected and lambasted with all of these medical things, plastics, metals, things, treatments, and the secret fifth thing being the sugar. And sugar is kind of a stand-in for drugs, is like the way to dull the pain. It is the most important element, but it is not known as much. The mother is implementing all of these special procedures. She went off to a faraway land to try to find answers for her kid so she could cure the things that ails him. The father is strongly against any sort of experimental medical procedures because he does not believe in the creations of the world. He believes in religion. He believes that if this child is fated to die, then the child needs to die, because that is what God's will is. And because the mother has usurped this natural religious process, it is now on him to fix the things that she has broken. Now, that is how I view the story of the relationship of these three, is that the mom, against the wishes of the father, went out and sought all these things because I think I do agree that they are split apart, but against his wishes went out and did all these things, and now he views his kid as this abhorrent place that can only be fixed by removing whatever these heretical doctors have done to him.
I don't think that's an invalid reading. It's just not the reading I have.
To kind of build off of what Sam just said, because that's also what I thought, is when you're going back through the things, I don't think the weird warped realities and the specific days and stuff are things that the batter experienced. I think it is the child's trauma.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that. The child created the world, in my view.
The batter could be the personification of the kid's father, right? But if the child created everything, did the child not also create like the batter and the mother as facsimiles of what their father and mother actually were? And
I think the answer to that is no.
I have read people's analysis that is the case, though. I've read people's analysis that the child created the world, the mother shaped it, the guardians filled it, and then the batter comes to unmake it. But it's all creative of the mind of the child.
Right. I don't think that's wrong. But the world that gets created is through the scope of the child whose understanding of the world has been warped by his sickness and undergoing all these treatments.
Hello everyone. I come to you once again, hat in hand, in the middle of this very heavy episode to ask you to rate us 5 stars on whatever your podcast app of choice is. If you would like, you could also follow us on social media, which includes Facebook, YouTube, and now TikTok. We'd love to see you there. I'll throw you back to the episode. In my view, the story of the game that you see from the batter's perspective is the ultimate wish of the father that the child had never been born.
right.
And that is the premise from which I sort of build out everything I've said so far. You see this in the end of the game with the father's interaction with the judge, where the father says something to the effect of like, "I'm going to unmake this all," and the judge says like, "I would rather have a broken existence than none existence," right? And
it's not that he'd rather have a broken existence than no existence. It's that he'd rather have a broken existence than allow the batter's will to be done.
But the batter's will, the batter's will is to unmake it, right? To flip the switch.
Sure, but I think it is more personal between the judge and the batter than just about the judge caring if the broken world continues to exist or not.
It might be the case. I mean, I don't think you're wrong in saying that. I do think I don't want to say I'm unconvinced by your guys' reading, because like I said, I can see very clearly how everything flows forward logically from what you said. I'm just not shaken from my belief that the batter represents a strong right-wing worldview.
He does. He absolutely does. I just don't agree that he is meant to be the hero of the story.
Maybe I'm not. I haven't sort of iterated well enough. I don't think that the writers and authors were supportive of the batter or view him as a good person. I don't think they did a good enough job criticizing it. I think they are overly sympathetic to a point where it made me uncomfortable. Right? I don't think they did a good enough job with the critique of the batter's worldview, and I think they had a lot to say about the critique of the mother's worldview and the critique of the state of the world at the beginning of the game that the batter just brutalizes, right? Just runs through. In my reading.
And, it's interesting because I hear what you're saying, and like I said to you pre-pod, I feel like a lot of if this is meant to be a real critique of utopianism / communism, it feels like Baby's first critique of utopianism / communism. I don't think it really engages with those things on a level that I even feel like it would challenge my, incredibly, extremely left-wing ideas at all.
I wonder if there is something inherent to French geopolitics that has informed the way that they grapple with these ideas. Surely there is.
I feel like this is just a flat-out deconstruction of capitalism.
Me too. That's what I read. Like, the way the people, and that's why I was confused, is because they say during the Three Friends things, we are utopianists, and I'm like, what do you mean? This is where I got a little confused, and where I was saying It doesn't feel like it fit, because I was like, all of the stuff that happened in the zones and all of this, the way the people were engaging with their life, and I guess I actually resonated with what the batter was doing, kind of, in like the destruction and purification of the zone because of the patheticness of the existence, right?
So the thing about any utopian society story is that it is inevitably supposed to be revealed about why a utopiast idea would not work, right?
Right.
Any book about a utopia is inevitably shown to be that things are not all they're cracked up to be, because the creator of the utopia is inevitably flawed and cannot see through the cracks of their own creation, right? And in that, this game uses that to levy criticism against capitalism by showing that these capitalist ideas that are held by the creators and protectors of the zones are inherently unable to sustain the population of the people that live within them, because I think it's most exemplified in Zone 3. The people that are forced, even when you reward people for their labor by giving them the things that they think they need, and you can read sugar any way you want. You can say it's drugs. You could say it is fast food. It is, vapid media consumption. You can say whatever it is you want to be. Sugar is really, to me, just a stand-in for some sort of
something that makes you really happy.
Some sort of pleasure, right?
And it's built off of the bodies of the others.
Correct. Right? And so, sugar is ultimately a destroyer of the people. And Zone 1 is very similar in that sense, where Zone 1 is just it's more broken up because of all the different industries that exist.
Yeah, and in Zone 1 and Zone 3 specifically, the big criticism I saw of what these people were doing was they pretty much all just say, yeah, economics works because we are told it works.
Yeah.
Which is
now the important thing here is that obviously Zone 2 is more of a departure from these things. It is, but I think it is also not a person that was in charge of Zone 2. It was a bird. Now, what is the bird meant to represent as far as a real life counterpart? It's kind of hard to say, but obviously Zone 2 is meant to be more of like, I think you could say like pseudo-socialist, but that is where things get a little more murky. But the systems on which Zone 2 are built upon are still the results of the labor of people of Zones 1 and 3, right?
I think it's also valid to say that if I accepted this reading, that like Zone 2 was just probably not a part of the story where they were applying those types of symbols.
Yeah.
You might just say like, this is just not a part of the story that's concerned with that. It's concerned with the relationship of the guardians to the mother, or the guardians to the people,
And Zone 2 felt more to me like people's fear of change or uncomfortableness.
Yeah,
that's true.
I like it. To me, what Zone 2 felt like is they were given a paradise, and with that paradise, they did
nothing. They valued their own protection and safety over living a life that had meaning. They built a roller coaster where all you do is sit in a chair rather than ride the real roller coaster, 30 steps away.
It's wild that they dangerous. Put water in a room.
If I want to put myself in your guys' shoes, right? I might say that the critique that Zone 2 levies is the critique of the sort of gated wealthy community that hoards the pleasures of life such that they don't even use them, and keeps out all of the folks who do not, you have to wear a tie, right? So that is the if I were to say, I would think that those things would be the important part, the part that relates to the class struggle, right?
So yeah, so to your point, Buck, I think that is what it is. There's not a disconnection there. It is a deconstruction it is a almost parody of the utopian genre, because we, as people that live in a highly capitalistic society, can't perceive this as a utopia because we exist in it.
Yeah.
So the concept that anyone would create that as their utopia is, quite frankly, ridiculous to us people that have lived in it for so long. But I think it actually works as a deconstruction and critique of it by working it in backwards.
Mm-hmm.
In my view, right, where the central premise of the game is this conflict between the utopian view and the nihilistic view, I think these zones are meant to represent the parts of the batter, the way the batter sees the world, that sort of create the view of nihilism and create the view that all this would be better if it didn't exist.
Right.
In zone 1, it is the batter's relationship to the workplace, the salt mine, the meat factory. In 2, it is the relationship to sort of the pleasures in life and the life that is the living part, the part that is not labor, right? The community home where all of your neighbors are these like effete, deformed, sad men all going to work, and the pleasures being like these carnival rides that don't actually create joy. In the photo that you can get going down the roller coaster, the batter's not even smiling,
But
right?
he does have his hands up.
He does put his hands up.
He's
I mean, if anything, that makes me feel better about my thoughts. Is like, oh yeah, he did what he's supposed to do. What everyone says is supposed to make him happy. You go down and you put your hands up, and then he's still no smile, right?
Yeah.
I think this would be another thing that would, if someone was like a real doomer, these would be the things that they would discuss as like the things that are supposed to be filling them with joy and feeling like life is worth living that are falling short.
Yeah. I mean, I 100% agree on the reading that the batter is meant to represent a nihilistic worldview.
Yeah,
I don't even think I could begin to deny that even a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I think Zone 3 is my favorite and the most interesting of the original or of the first 3. You know, first off, puzzle solving did not make me want to run my head into a wall. And I know we were saying, and I agreed, that gameplay is a small part of how you evaluate a game as a piece of art, but it helps.
Mm-hmm.
It helps when it's good. The role of the fourth wall shopkeeper in here is very interesting.
Meow.
It's pretty great.
Why did you do that?
That's what he does.
That's what he does.
He's like, I
wasn't
am,
expecting that.
I am a cat, therefore I must act like a cat.
Jesus fucking Christ. I wasn't ready. I
Put on
wasn't
my
prepared.
cat mask.
I wasn't prepared for that.
Wow.
Oh, man, that really derailed me. That really derailed me, dude. Oh, my God. Jesus Christ. But yeah, in like Zone 3, it's, what was I saying? Fuck me. It's like, it's payday. It is the view of the people getting what they toil so hard for and why they put up with living in their unfulfilling communities. You go and get the thing, and there's like the knowledge in the back of your mind that what you've got is just built off the corpses of the people who work themselves to death to get it to you.
And you know, not just work themselves to death. You know, they're forced to coexist with their oppressors and let their oppressors do whatever they want to them.
Yeah, and it feels, it's like this personification of this feeling that your big fat lap of luxury boss is literally chasing you down, right? Is breathing down your neck and is larger than life.
Mm-hmm.
I love Enoch. He's great.
Enoch's funny. The very hilarious him like running down the hallways to get you in the zigzag part.
The most RPG maker thing to happen.
Very
in this
funny.
game.
Very funny.
I think it's I like it when you do that fight, the batter's really like, shit, he's too fat. I
He's
can't
too
kill
fat.
him.
I can't kill him.
Can I ask y'all to It's something I just thought of. To circle back to what we were talking about before, the pieces of black and white artwork that illustrate the world, right? When they show you, like, you're in the meat factory, and then they show you that big diagram. Do we know where that came from? Is that an original piece of art, or was that taken from somewhere?
It was taken from something. It wasn't something
They look
created.
like classic, like probably in the Commons etchings.
Yeah. It reminded me of like a diagram you'd see in like a history textbook.
Yeah.
Of like this is an illustration of how this is where the serfs were. They tilled the fields. And
Yeah, they were not created specifically for this game.
I wonder
they were sourced.
I wonder where they were from. I bet that would be very insightful. Knowing what those meant would, I think, be very informative to me.
I wonder if those are like important etchings from French history or something.
It could be.
I'm just not a French person.
They might. I don't know. There's some kind of European history diagram, right? Surely. I found a lot of the imagery, the symbology, and the text of this game very challenging. Made me think a lot, which was, I found very, very pleasantly surprising for a little 7-hour RPG maker, like, side project between two guys. I think, like, I can't praise enough, like, because, I like art that challenges me. I like art that makes me think about my presumptions about the world and, like, sheds light onto worldviews that I wouldn't normally think of. I think they did a good job here.
The battle music in the basement of Area 3 is the thing that terrified me more than anything else we've ever done.
Oh, yeah?
Those guys running around in the, like, hallways, when you fight them, did you listen to that music? That shit.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's horrendous.
Ugh.
It'll stand your neck hairs up. Also, like, there were parts of that where I thought the boss was still coming after me. Like, I was fighting those guys, hearing that music, and I was like, there's going to be a big fat man coming after me as soon as I get out of this fight. Big ass head. So can I ask about a couple things that confused me about this story?
I mean, lots of things confused me.
What was going on with Boxer? What was going on there?
So, this is not a direct answer to your questions, but some things that I noted were that he was against a baseball man.
Yeah, of course.
He also fought on the wrong side of the screen.
Yeah.
I feel like this was the kid's escapism from his father, if I had to guess.
I think it's interesting that this is a comic that was given to the kid by the dad, and the batter fucking hates it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's an important... It almost makes me wonder if this is not the comic that his dad gave him, or if it's maybe meant to, like, cast doubt on the batter being the father, which I don't think is accurate. But,
let's engage just like a little bit here, right? Let's imagine you gave your son a comic book about a guy beating the shit out of the other guy, and then he pointed at the other guy who was getting the shit beat out of him, and he was like, that guy's name's Sam. You would probably hate that, right?
Yeah. I think it's mostly just meant to be, the batter is the manifestation of the child's understanding of his father, then that view of his dad came from reading this comic book, right?
Maybe so. Yeah, I could see that. It came at a point in the game that I found very strange and didn't really know how to interpret.
Yeah.
And I think I still don't know, but, like, that's a good point. Maybe it was informative of the child, or that's what you're supposed to understand anyway.
I mean, I know my father specifically exposed me to a lot of media that was like, hey, father, all your ideas are wrong.
Yeah.
So I think the interesting second reading here, if you want to get into it, is that in the comic book, the baseball player kidnaps the girlfriend of the boxer.
Oh yeah.
And so you could begin to piece together this reading that the batter is not the father of the child, the boxer is the father of the child, and the batter is, kidnapped her, in the early, or like stole her away in the early stages of her pregnancy, but just now acts as the father to this kid.
I don't know.
Or you could say that some more sinister things happen that I'm not going to elaborate on, but I think you can
Yeah.
draw your own conclusions.
My best idea I had, and I'm not super confident in this, but it's the best idea I had, is that it's there to illustrate the child's desire to like fight the father.
Sure.
That the child that has some aspect of the father that he hates and can't stand and wants to fight him. The boxer is bald, like maybe someone going through chemotherapy might be, and everywhere he turns there's more batters, which might be like
The
it might be like,
clones.
yeah, it might be like a child's like inability to escape out from under the thumb of their parents when they're a kid. That was like kind of things I was conceptualizing, but again, I'm not 100% on those.
It's just, again, I think it's important to just remember this is a surrealist piece of media, and there's lots of different reads of the text. It doesn't make your read wrong. It just means that it's worth discussing because it's important to understand how people's perspectives can be not warped, but changed.
And I guess I should mention now, and maybe something I should have said at the beginning is, the batter does exist on the wrong side of the screen if you've ever played a 2D RPG before.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
fight from the wrong side of the screen.
Well, not if we say that this might be influenced by Final Fantasy VI or 5. You fight from the right on those games.
In back attack situations.
Are the characters on the left side of the screen in Final Fantasy VI? I'm almost certain they're
Oh,
on the right.
no. In 5, I'm pretty sure I'd have to look.
I think. See, maybe that's informing my view of like why the batter is not seen as a bad guy, and maybe it's informing your view of why you think the batter is seen as a bad guy. Right? We have a fundamental difference of which side of the screen the antagonists go on. I mean, it's funny, but I think it's certainly like a subconscious thing that shades our view of that character. Right? I was thinking of Final Fantasy VI. You were thinking of like what, Dragon Quest or something?
Well, Dragon Quest, you fight from first person perspective.
Sure.
I was thinking, like, I don't know, like, I can't remember. I don't know. I was thinking of something else.
Okay. I don't know. That might shade our individual perceptions of how the batter is in what gradient of sympathy he's meant to be viewed. Something to think about.
Yeah.
I have no opinions on this. I don't play that many RPGs. I didn't play any of these games.
What Sam is saying is he's not a gamer.
Yeah, not a real gamer.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So like what else is there to
Well,
discuss?
is there other confusing things you wanted to talk about?
That was one. It's just like individual small little weird things, like the very large man at the end of the game, and like why you start like fucking around with like weird save files and stuff.
Yeah.
And just like there's like certain things that I think might be some kind of symbol or might be something that is to be interpreted that I couldn't quite connect the dots. It might just be like an artistic choice, but they felt like they meant something to me.
So I think a lot of I was watching a little bit of a video earlier, and a lot of the concepts of this. So this game, as an element, is about the creation of a world, and whenever a world is created, with it come a lot of like myths, right? That are like about how things are constructed. So there could be a myth about the birds who lifted the man out of the hole, right? And
Oh, I meant the citizen, the one that you give the codes to.
oh, that
The
guy,
insanely large man.
I think it's just that in the room, the world has not been constructed. The room is merely an extension of the psyche of Hugo.
Maybe.
So as a result, it's very confusing and nonlinear and deconstructed elements of the actual world that was created.
And to maybe go more into that, I thought the save file thing was weird, but I viewed it as seeing it as compartmentalized, like specific traumatic days for him, since like each of the save files has a different day calendar in the room.
Okay, I could see that.
I can't be particularly certain, and like, because his room is always like a certain like specific way, and the surroundings change significantly and are never like portrayed as concretely as the room. My assumption is he never really left his room, right? And so like the way he processes the changing of time and days is very compartmentalized, and maybe that's a save file thing.
I could see these things. I could see these reads.
I did think it was weird and unnecessary, but I mean,
I thought it was weird and very necessary. It's surrealist media. It's not always supposed to make perfect sense.
Yeah.
It's just meant to make you think about what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't really view the way, like, I sometimes say things a little bit too severely than I mean them whenever I'm, like, criticizing art. Like, I didn't think it was bad. I was just like, this is, like, I didn't, like, why do you always have to go, like, from the continue screen to those one specific things, you know?
Yeah. A
Which,
little tedious.
I mean, maybe it doesn't matter why, right? Is the thing.
I think any like criticism I could lay against this game could be countered like pretty validly by saying like, well, it's a 7-hour it's a 5 to 7 hour game. It's not like you're not running a marathon with all of these annoying elements.
Yeah. Unless you're not taking notes when you're seeing the numbers on the bottom of pages.
That's terrible. The 5 questions took me so long. The 5, you had to look at the posters.
Oh yeah.
Because I kept tricking myself into thinking I could do it by memory.
Yeah.
And then I got like 30 attempts in, and I was like, maybe I should take some notes.
And like I realized that I was like completely misinterpreting what the questions were saying.
Yeah.
So, since this was a game that was created by 2 artists before game designers, I want all of us to talk about one piece of art from this game that really like you found to be particularly evocative and interesting. So, for me, it would be the Area 2 boss fight where Japhet emerges from the body of Valerie. That to me was like the most horrific but also like incredible piece of artwork in this game. Just like the sprites where Japhet like starts in the mouth
emerging
and the
from
emergence,
the cat
yeah,
body. Oh
just like
god,
really
So good.
interesting
Very good.
and very evocative. Because like, oh well, so the cat ate the bird at some point, but the bird was stronger, so it just took over the body.
I would say for me,
It could also be like I want to specify. I don't mean it doesn't have to be like a sprite work or whatever. It could also be like one of the pieces of music as well.
mine was sprite work. I mean, like when you have the fight with the mother, the fact that she is surrounded by these beautiful add-ons that are these like esoteric winding structures,
like harp-like things.
yeah, and they just do the same things as your little brutalist circles.
Oh yeah.
It was like first off, great sprite work for like first time sprite artists, fantastic. Second off, illustrative of the difference in worldview of the 2 characters, which I thought was central to the conflict of the game. Very well done. I loved it. I loved the music in that fight too. I loved, and her attacks where she's like criticizing your raising of the child.
Yeah.
You don't even know his name. You didn't come to the birthday party. You know, just like things like that. Very striking. Very striking to me.
For me, it's one of the things that I already mentioned. The music that plays in Purified Zone 1. That is, I can't get over that. Like, I've been thinking about it since I finished it. There were a lot of second boss fight music, too. I don't know if it was different throughout the boss fights, the second boss fight music. You know, I really liked I even liked, like, the maze puzzle, where the puzzle is you have to find the exit where the music is louder. Impeccable sound work in a video game.
No. Oh, no.
Oh no, what?
I turned the music off during that point in the game.
Oh.
I was literally trial and erroring that maze.
His ass was so confused.
I literally was keeping a song in my head where I was like, up, left, down, up, left.
I started by keeping the notes of how to do the order, and then I noticed that because I was playing with headphones on, I noticed the music volume was changing, and I was like, wait, the music volume is changing.
Yeah, you were noting the correct ways to go, and then that led you to the discovery.
During a lot of the puzzle solving elements, the parts where I thought that there was I was going to be listening to music on a loop while I figured something out, I would frequently mute the game. That was I didn't realize. That's pretty funny.
Oh man, for this, you took the second boss sprite work is my favorite.
It's really good.
I also there was a similar kind of enemy where he was just a big furry guy, and sometimes a human head would pop out of it.
Yeah. I think that's one of the burnt.
Yeah.
I remember that you have to go punch the head separately.
Mm-hmm.
Very funny.
You should definitely play off if you haven't had the opportunity to yet. It's free.
And it's fantastic.
It's short.
It is better than most games you'll pay $10 for.
Yeah, that's so true. It's better than anything Ubisoft has made in 12 years.
And I think the creator of the game is actually working on a new game. So it'll be interesting to see when that comes out, how it turns out.
Hopefully we'll play it. Maybe it'll be received well.
Next time on Level 0 Lit, we're talking about...
Hold on. No, don't do that. Take it again. Say the whole name.
What, like literature? I would say English lit?
I'm going to spin this microphone cord around like a whip.
Next time on Lizzle.
We're talking about her story.
I'm going to lose my... Say the whole name of the goddamn podcast. I swear to God. We are fighting for our lives out here in the branding space. We have such a...
We finally get to make Mason play another FMV game.
Oh boy. Well, the last FMV game we played was not for broadcast, right? That was a good one. So hopefully this one will be good too.
They do exist. Good FMV games exist.
Like Darkseed. Anyway, bye everybody.